Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players Podcast. This is our show for the races of Saturday, February 20th. It is currently February 19th. I'm your host, Peter. Oh, I can't even say my own name. And I'm not even going to start again. Peter Thomas Fornatal. I am in the DG Flop House, adjacent to the little house on the east side in Saratoga Springs. I've been up since 3:30 in the morning, folks. So if I seem a little punchy, that's why. It's currently 9 a.m. The form wasn't going to study itself, and we're in good shape here. We've got a great show for you, a real international flair on today's program. We're going to start off in the good old US of A, looking at the late pick 5 at Santa Anita, as well as the 2 golden hour races from Golden Gate. Then we are going to head across to Saudi Arabia, joined by 2 very special guests to talk about the Saudi Cup. Very enjoyable conversation. We're going to have more coverage of the Saudi Cup over on Plus, where we have the same crew assembled to talk about the undercard non-Arabian races. That was a fun chat as well. Definitely worth checking out In the Money Plus, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus if you're interested in that. And we wrap things up with a new sponsored segment I'm really excited about from our friends at the JRA, the Japan Racing Association. Klaus Ebner of Woodbine Entertainment is here to give us his thoughts on 2 races. We've got grade 1 action in Japan Saturday night into Sunday morning, and also a race awarding Kentucky Derby points that might just have a runner who could be headed to these shores if everything goes well. But we're going to kick things off on this show, bringing in a returning guest. You know him from the fantastic work he does over on his show, Redboard Rewind. He's also been writing the daily analysis of Oaklawn Park. Poor Oaklawn Park haven't run in a couple of weeks, but they will hopefully be getting back on track soon. And this man will be covering them in full. I'm speaking, of course, about Spencer Luganbuehl. Spencer, how are you today?
I am doing good, Pete. You've been up since 3. I've been up since about 5:30, so we're both feeling a little punchy today.
Yeah, in my younger days, I thought of getting up at 3:30 or even 5:30. It just wasn't going to happen. But you get older, your days get very busy, and if you want, especially like that very specific thing, and I'm sure almost everyone watching or listening who's a dyed-in-the-wool racing fan can appreciate this. Just like the calm of being able to like spread out the PPs and just look at races and go down formulator rabbit holes and all that stuff. It doesn't work so well when there's, for me anyway, I don't do my best work when there's other people around. And if I don't want other people to be around, I'm pretty much looking at getting up sinfully early. Why were you up so early today? Same deal, studying form?
Studying form, and I was trying to get caught up on I got invested this past week in Cobra Kai, the show that used to be on YouTube TV.
Oh, I love Cobra Kai, yeah.
So I am now fully caught up, and obviously WandaVision also dropped today with their new episode. I'm about halfway through that, so
what do I need to see if I wanted to watch? 2 questions about WandaVision real fast.
Yeah.
This is, you can't get this kind of analysis just anywhere, folks. First of all, is it appropriate for an 8-year-old child? The fact that you hesitated makes me think the answer is no.
Probably
and
not.
Then the second question is what are the prerequisites? What do you need to have watched to appreciate WandaVision in the universe?
Probably Age of Ultron, the second Avengers movie, and that's pretty much about it. Everything about this show now sets up the new Doctor Strange movie, so it would be like if you didn't watch the show and then you watch that movie that comes out either next year or later this year, you'd be like completely bamboozled and like, what's going on?
All right, well, thank you for that input. Love Cobra Kai, big Peyton List fan, and who I know from parents like Nickelodeon shows. And I was like, wait a second, is that the same girl? She does such a good job. She can really act. Anyway, there's a lot of good stuff going on Cobra Kai. And I actually did a rewatch of the original Karate Kid the other day. I thought it held up. I was entertained. Love Pat Morita. Okay, enough complete nonsense. It's time to talk about horse racing, and we're going to do so by moving out to the West Coast. We're talking about what I think is a pretty interesting pick 5 sequence at Santa Anita. It kicks off at 5:42 Eastern time with their 5th race, as I said. We're on the turf going 10 furlongs, 4 and up, starter allowance company. And we'll have you kick this one off. We've got a big favorite in here in Ward and Jerry. Are you with or against? We'll start that.
I am against. So the reason I am against is obviously has been in a bunch of really good turf stakes. I just feel that when you look through the PPs, seems to always do the best running first time out. Now we're getting, third off the layoff. He didn't run as well second off the layoff last time out with Pratt on. Pratt seems to always take the money. I decided to end up on a horse named Shadow Sphinx for Kristen Mulhall. Going down that formulary rabbit hole today, she is 3 for 5 when she is second time off the claim, but the horse has won the first time out. So I think it's a small sample size, but 3 for 5 I think is very, very good for a small sample size. And this is one I just think likes to win. 9 wins and 22 starts. This one likes and can find the winner's circle. Definitely going to be my top pick in this race. I also thought the next horse on the outside, Navy Armed Guard, was a little bit interesting for Quinn Howie coming out of Golden Gate. Just another one that just wins seconds, thirds, knows how to hit the board, and just can be very, very consistent. And for my lone B, I'm going to use number 4, Lure Him In, pretty much just because it ran right behind Shadow Sphinx last time out.
Those kind of form angles can often pay dividends. And we've talked about this on all kinds of shows. But when you those horses that can run close up, sometimes at the very least it makes sense to back up, especially if they're going to be decent prices. You did not have my top pick in here. I was going to try to turn this into a pace play with Murad Khan, the 5, who I just thought had an opportunity to potentially shake loose. Now, I suppose Shadow Sphinx could make my life miserable out there, and maybe I'd be wise to try to use the 6 as a backup. But I mean, this is just a horse with solid form and figures, and I'm with you that while I think I'm going to probably use the favorite Warden Jerry as a backup, not one to be excited about as the heavy fave, and I'm just tempted to use 5-2 and move on. But I'm being a little bit talked into the idea of the 6 as a backup, and yeah, it's one of those funny things. There's like a fine line between there's certain small samples with stats that I'm always going to want to just sort of question, but when they're that cherry picked,
yeah,
and you can attribute them to something other than randomness, I'm actually a little bit more tempted to pay attention. So I either tend to want to use sample size that's either, significant or very small and possibly indicative of a trend, like your 3 for 5 on that Shadow Sphinx angle. Does that make sense to you?
absolutely, 100%.
All right, let's continue along with this sequence. Moving on to race number 6. Our scheduled post time is 6:14. We're on a mile on the dirt, 4 and up, optional claimer, first level allowance. I really liked 2 in here above the field. I was going to go with number 4, Motown Music, as my top pick. Just looks to me to be a progressive sort, adding the blinkers today, second off the layoff after just missing the three-peat last time. I don't have a clocker report, but looks to be working okay. Motown Music, not just for fans of the Temptations, the Supremes, Marvin Gaye, Smokey Robinson. I could go on, but you get the idea. I was going to have to include number 4, Charlito, in this spot. Might be clear on pace figures in very light with the talented Jessica Pfeiffer up. Might be able to dictate terms and reverse form with the top one. I was kind of happy to take those 2 against the field. 4-3 for me. How do you see this one, Spencer?
We are consensus 4-3. I kind of just agree with you. Mark Glatt for Motown Music, mostly known as a dirt sprint trainer. Now obviously have stretched the horse out twice, but ran perfectly fine both times, winning and then just missing by a neck. And like you said about Charlito, Jessica Pfeiffer, just a really solid bug rider. Obviously, 8% isn't, I think, indicative of how good she does. I think she's had one day, whether it was Los Al or Santania, where she won 3 on the card. So definitely knows how to find the winner's circle. And I think when you're looking for bug riders, this is the way you have to do it. You want to find what trainers know how to use bug riders effectively. And I know Richard Mandella knows how to do that.
That's a good point. And a lot of times with a bug rider too, I'll look at what the task at hand is. Are we looking for a perfectly timed move in a 2-turn turf race where there's lots of speed? Maybe that's not the spot where you want the bug rider. When the strategy is going to be go to the lead and stay there, I'm very happy to get that weight break and the bug rider. She's shown she can give that ride, and I don't know. I mean, it's hard to choose between them, really, between the pace advantage that Charlito's going to have in the weights. But my gut just told me to put Motown Music as the top pick and use the 3 as a backup. Let's talk about race number 7, 6:46 Eastern, is the Grade 2 Buena Vista Stakes. We're on the turf going a mile, 4 and up, fillies and mares. And Spencer, I'll send this one back to you. What do you like?
This was probably my favorite race on the entire card. I ended up going with the number 2 Mucho Unusual on top. If you just take out that Breeders' Cup race and the Jenny Wiley against Rushing Fall, Julia Olympica, and Julia Foxtrot, I mean, the form is almost impeccable. Just all the different wins, going different distances. I think she's very versatile as a 5-year-old. 5 for 9 at Santa Anita with 7 wins lifetime. Obviously, a horse for course type angle for me. One that I had to use as a backup was Going to Vegas. Just the slow improvement for Richard Baltas. I almost feel it's like Shug on the West Coast in a way. Just really knows how to slowly get that stepping up improvement. I'm not the biggest fan of Mario Gutierrez, but this one also being 6 for 7 in the exact on the Santa Anita turf is one to watch out for, I think.
Did you have any distance concerns regarding Mucho Unusual? I thought it was interesting um, in the racing form that even though Mucho Unusual has had success going the flat mile, that I think it was Tim Yakteen who was quoted saying he was thinking more ground might be to this one's benefit.
For me, once they've won, once it usually takes that thought out of my head. This one's already won this race 4 times. I mean, against this type of company, just won a grade 3 last time out. I'm not worried, but if all of a sudden it seems like she just needed a little bit more, I guess that the trainer would know better than I would.
Do you have, I mean, and sometimes trainers just say that stuff too.
Mhm.
It's always better. It's the old, I've heard it described as godding up the opponent, a Texas football coach thing. We should ask JK about it when we finally get him back on our airwaves. But that idea that, before the homecoming game, where if there was a line you'd be a 70-point favorite, you still want to talk about how tough the other team is, and you set yourself up for success when you lower expectations. There could be some of that going on. Did you have any others you wanted to mention as a backup in this spot?
It was just those two for me. Just obviously a horse like Nasty won the Ladies Shamrock last time out, had a terrible trip 2 back. This was a horse that me and Tyler Hoffman had talked about on Redboard Rewind. I think this is a much tougher spot here. A horse like Red Lark, maybe I would use defensively. Charmaine's Mia's got to have to prove it one more time to me.
All right. I had to go with Charmaine's Mia at the end of the day. Does need to go 2 turns for the first time in a while. I liked how confident D'Amato sounded. And I just feel like she, in the races, looks like one who will get the distance and also appears to be working very well. I was going to put her on top, and I was going to go with Red Lark as my backup. I thought was a little interesting as the presumptive best closer at a decent price should they go too fast. I feel like if Charmaine's Mia doesn't win, it's probably because they went too fast. So give me a closer who might be value. And as for Drayden Van Dyke showing up on Red Lark, that is insignificant in that by the time Charmaine's Mia was confirmed for the race, he was already committed to Red Lark. That's a note from Brad Free's article in the Daily Racing Form. I didn't really do too much digging on that one, but I did want to pass it along because I know, folks sometimes get sucked into playing that jockey musical chairs game. And as you know, Spencer, doesn't always mean all that much.
Totally agree with that. And I just think when you look at this race overall, if you think Charmaine's Mia is going to be the goods, you kind of almost have to single in this spot in a tough field like this. But just the way she won last time against also what a horse that I thought was going to be very, very good in Jolie Olympica. Just it's one of those where I'm going to take a shot against this one. If she wins, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. It's a game of opinions and you got to take stands. Let's move on to race number 8, 7:20 Eastern for this 1 mile on the dirt contest for 3-year-old fillies. These are made in 30s down to 28. Number 1, Painter's Love is what I want to use in this spot. The dam has produced 3 debut winners from 7 runners. Dave Hoffman's certainly a trainer who can win with a first-time starter, and a first-time starter going long at that just looked like a good spot for a stranger. I was going to use number 10, Simmer Down, as well. Improved a ton last time. I didn't necessarily think that was a great day to be on the rail either. This one's in light again under Ellingwood, and I just thought had the speed to be involved throughout. I was going to try to use the 1 and the 10. I'm extremely open to suggestion in this spot. This is one where those are the 2 horses I like, but I by no means feel like I have the race locked up. Very curious to hear your numbers.
This just feels like to me like Made in Carew, like a spot where this horse is going to not surprise, obviously being even money favorite and losing last time out, but just Peter Miller Pratt on, small drop in class. Now they go first time blinkers. This horse is going to show a little bit more speed, etc. Simmer Down. I'm curious to know why the Bug Boy's staying on. Obviously, maybe Ryan
Well,
Hansen,
girl,
Bug Girl, sorry, uh, likes to if he likes to also use the apprentice riders or not. If that would make sense, then why they stay on. But after such a good showing, maybe you'd think you'd put a more journeyman rider on to try and get that W.
I don't know. I mean, I was thinking he just thought that that she did a good job and wanted the weight off. I mean, at this level, I know we don't think about weight a lot in American racing, but at this level, with horses with speed, it's only a 3 pound pull from some of these, but you are just getting 10 and 12 pounds from some of the horses in this race. I think it could prove decisive. I just think it was a strategic play and rewarding a young rider who did a good job on his horse the last day.
When you lose by half a length, sometimes it's that 1 or 2 pounds off the horse. That's why I think people who, obviously I do some work for some people over in England, and when they talk with me about, USA racing, they're like, well, what about the weight? And they've kind of helped me understand a lot more when it comes to weight differentials and stuff like that. And I think Scott Carson's another one who really understands and uses weight a lot in his handicapping as well.
A lot of the sheet players, because it is baked into that methodology. So recap your numbers for me in this one.
It's going to be Made in Carew, who is the
3. No, 4. Excuse me.
4.
I'm sorry.
All right, and the outside horse Simmer Down.
Okay, 4 and 10. So both of us have some 10s on the ticket. We'll see how it shakes out. I should also mention that race number 8 will be the start of the Golden Hour Pick 4. We'll talk about those interconnecting Golden Hour races from Golden Gate after we wrap Santa Anita. Race 9 at Santa Anita will commence the Golden Hour double. 7:52 is your scheduled post time on the East Coast. We're on the turf going 6.5 for 4 and up. First level allowance runners. Interesting little race here. Spencer, I'm going to let you kick this one off.
I'm going pretty deep in here. I'm going to start off with the number 2, Coast of Roan. Really solid win last time out for the optional starter allowance, and just one that has been so good in the last couple of races. Now they switched from Rispoli over to Hernandez, which to me is a little interesting. But 3 for 5, all 3 wins have come on over this turf course, and they've all come. One has come sprinting at this distance. One I definitely need to add. I was a little bit interested in Southern Horse, the Argentinian. Might be one that I use as a backup, possibly. Nothing much else to say. Just, one that I think could always spice up the exotics. Symphonic for Robert Hess. Just the first race off the layoff, they go back sprinting on the turf and just fires out a really, really big race. Maybe second time out could possibly improve again for a new barn. My main backup is going to be Psycho Dar for Kristen Mulhall. One that just likes to win, 6 for 23, but I always like to see a horse that has more wins in seconds and thirds. It's just you always seem to get those horses that are, 2 wins and 12 seconds and thirds, and I always try to use those horses more underneath. But this is one for me coming out of the state bred stake ranks that I think could be very interesting.
So I'm going to grade you there with the 2 is an A and the B's as 10, 6, 8, or did you want the 6 or the 8 as an A?
Nope, 10, 6, 8 is B's.
That sounds good. And yeah, I mean, I would agree. Horses, they are pack animals, and you do see some, and you'll see it in races. You could just visually tell sometimes they don't want to go by. Now, the exception to me with that is I believe more than that. That tendency for me is right when they're running at the same level. When they drop, for me, that's out the window, and they're much more likely to run what their numbers say they're going to run. Does that match your experience?
Pretty much to the T for the most part.
With these bridesmaid types. And you mentioned about the jockey change on Coast of Roan. It's a sad story. If you're Umberto Rispoli, he was meant to go over to Saudi and ride there. In the end, it turned, so that's why he doesn't have the call. But in the end, it turned out there was some sort of technical issue with his COVID test or something. He had a thing on social media about it. But in any case, at the end of the day, Rispoli will be at Santa Anita, but he's obviously not, everybody else has their mounts. It would be kind of nasty of trainers to spin the booked riders to put him back on. Don't think he's going to be getting much work this weekend, but we'll see. Sometimes these things have a way of sorting themselves out. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about that at all. I made Coast of Roan my top pick in the race. This is up in class. That should be noted. And the horse did have a setup last time, but I just still feel like, based on numbers, this horse is going to play well against this field. I definitely want him on side. And I also want the 6, the Interesting Stranger, just a horse who fits very well off the Irish form. I don't want to bore everybody by being a broken record and talking about turf form shipping west, but Southern Horse, another example of it. Give me the 2-6 on the top line, and I don't mind the idea of backing up with the 2 that you mentioned, the 8 and the 10 as well. So we'll end the Santa Anita portion of the show with consensus, and then we'll head up north to Golden Gate Fields for 7:37. This race will be the second race in the Golden Hour pick 4. We always encouraging people to play. I mean, we've seen we see the tremendous overlays in the Stronach 5, which I just learned, unfortunately, is canceled today. Spencer, Laurel not going to be able to run, which is a bummer. But anyway, great overlays in that bet. Great overlays here as well. I do think that the somehow having the extra track involved seems to juice payouts. Obviously, the low takeout helps, as does, I believe, the higher minimums in these spots. Anyway, this is the second race. We're on the all-weather going a mile and a 16th, 4 and up. Optional claimers, second level allowance types. I think number 8, Kono, just makes a ton of sense for Mike McCarthy. Dropping in for mistake, finding a spot where I think this one's going to be able to boss the field with the speed on hand. And his best races have come on Sin. I'm going to keep it simple and try to just go Kono in the second leg. But who knows? Maybe you'll make a compelling argument and I'll throw in some backups based on your say. So how do you see this one playing out?
Kono is one of my A's for sure. The other one, I'm going to go all the way to the inside. Our Silver Oak. Just the last 2 races since coming in from Los Alamitos, obviously one on the turf at Santa Anita, and then the much people wouldn't say it's improved because the buyer number is lower, but I like the way he ran it. Obviously, second by a neck to me is better than 5 by 3 lengths. And as the favorite, losing to a horse that's also in this race, King of Speed, I just think that now today he'll be able to flip the script and get the job done. And I'm not going to use the 7 because I don't know why there isn't a jump up. Maybe there just wasn't a stake field around. But I usually don't like seeing these optional 62 2Xers right back in the same spot.
Fair enough. So were you going to put any backups in there? Or were you just going to try to get out 8-1?
8-1.
8-1 for you, and I'm with you. I hemmed and hawed about including the 1 as a potential backup. So yeah, we'll keep very similar in that spot, and then we'll talk about the race that will pay off both the Golden Hour pick 4 and the Golden Hour double. And it is race number 9, 8:07, mile on the all-weather for $3,200 non-winners of 2 this year, 4 and ups. This is some real bread and butter stuff, Spencer. How are we going to get paid?
I'm going to go to the outside. Number 9, Perfect Comeback. Just the last 2 races, 59 and 60, just seem to be on the improve, even if it's slightly there. And horses that can have already won at the level, to me, are just interesting in general. I'm also going to use the horse Lifeline for Kyle Frey, just one of the top jocks out there, and comes dropping in from 7,000 and 4,000 claimers, which can always be dangerous. People don't understand that these quote-unquote smaller tracks, sometimes the drops like that are just so much bigger than people can imagine. And last but not least, number 4, Tinks Twirl at 6-1. Just another one dropping and switching surfaces that I think could possibly be dangerous in this spot.
I called it a bread and butter race. I just used a super bread and butter angle in here, just looking for horses who've run the Speed Figure Par recently. And for me, I just came up with Is Invincible, the 2 with that angle, and the 4 who you mentioned, Tinks Twirl. I love the idea of including your other logicals. I'll probably pop in the 9 and the 7 as backups. And, this is an important race as it pays off both of those legs. So I don't mind. I think I can tight enough elsewhere and get some coverage and hopefully get out of this Golden Hour pick 4 a winner. Before I let you get out of here, Spencer, I did want to ask you about what's been going on Redboard Rewind. What do you have? What'd you drop this week? I mean, I know, but for the listeners and viewers, what'd you drop this week, and what do you got coming up next week?
I dropped a nice little podcast with Eric Solomon. He's our writer for Fairgrounds for In the Money. He was a writer for me for a while. Great kid, just really understands the game. And I've been kind of going through the list. I started with John Pinder, then I had Ryan McCarthy. So now we're just going through the list of the writers. We're pretty much done with that for now. And I'm going to have Matt Derman on the show to cover Golden Gate after all the cancellations. And just really quick on that, I know people, complain and hem and haw with all these cancellations and stuff, but I'd much rather see a card canceled than them trying to run in just some crazy, crazy weather conditions. I mean, I can remember a couple years ago at Saratoga, just running in deluges for 2 races, then everyone goes home. I think that the way the sport's going now, I think we just have to be okay with cancellations and just, learn to fight another day.
Yeah, and it's a good weekend to look at racing around the world too. We've got our and that's such an absolutely perfect segue into the next 2 segments on the show. So yeah, I mean a little bit of extra reason to see what all's going on. But hey, there's going to be good stuff out there. I'm psyched about this California racing. Always appreciate you, Spencer, and what you bring to the In the Money team, and look forward to get you writing again soon and listening as well. So thank you very much, my friend.
You got it, my man. Have a good day.
Very excited about this next segment of the show. We had a longer chat with this same crew over on In the Money Plus. If you want to find out information about that, check it out, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. But here to talk about the big race of the weekend, $20 million on the line. And we've got 2 people I always enjoy talking to chat about it with us. First, from the In the Money team, the co-host of The Owner's Box. You know her from her fantastic work on, I could go on and on with this, but most recently I've seen her on the Santa Anita simulcast feed, so we'll throw that one out there. Michelle Yu, welcome to the In the Money airwaves. How are you?
Thanks, Tate. Doing great.
Now, folks don't know about the odyssey it took you to get here today. Well, maybe we'll let them in on that. But we're so glad to have you here, and we're also extremely glad to be joined for the first time on these airwaves. A man I know from work on Racing TV and as the host of the Matchbook podcast, Tom Stanley. Tom, how are you?
Very good. Yeah, it was an odyssey. We walked really the length and breadth of the parts of the track that we could get to find we couldn't connect via internet, so we chose the TV compound just outside the Louvre.
Yes, the original shot was there we go. Now we've got it. In there, and you can say hi in 2 screens. I think I'm getting a little dizzy, but it works. But now we really appreciate you guys moving heaven and earth and dealing with all my questions about the undercard. But obviously, the attention of the racing world this weekend very much on this $20 million race. It's a lot of form to go through, so we're hoping that you guys can illuminate a little bit about some of these other contenders for USA players, especially who might be looking to fill out their trifectas, etc. As far as I'm concerned, I feel like the USA contingent looks pretty dominant as far as what's going to happen in that first spot. The last time the 3 of us were all together, I believe it was one Michelle Yu who mocked me for picking Knicks Go in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Have you come around to Team Knicks Go at this point, Michelle? What have you settled on a final selection in this year's Saudi Cup?
Okay, so I have come around to respect Knicks Go. I thought he ran a good enough race in the Pegasus, but he took no pressure. I mean, he was out there for like a jog. Joel Rosario had a cup of tea. I mean, we had a camera on him for first bet, and we could literally see he was like making tea on the side. He was knitting. I mean, there was nothing else going on. That horse just had an easy work pretty much for $3 million. So he's not like battle tested, right? Like Knicks Go doesn't like knock heads with other horses, and that's a drawback to me. However, watching him and Charlatan both on track, I love how Knicks Go is getting over this track. It's half hard to see because he's pretty much either bent in half or his head's this way because this horse pulls. I do not envy his exercise rider, Dustin Dugas, who is here. And his arms must be like noodles or like iron, one of the two, because this horse pulls like nobody's business. It's like being hooked up to a semi. But he just gets over the track beautifully. You can see that he's getting his feet down in there. He has tons of forward momentum. He's got his butt tucked up underneath him. I think he is getting over the track superiorly. On the other hand, I wasn't in love with Charlatan's first time around the track that I got to see him out in person. Some of his videos, he's looked fine, but just when I saw him out, I would have liked him to kind of just gather himself up a little bit more. The track here is a little on the soft side. They don't water it a lot. I think he would appreciate a little bit more moisture in the track. But what I like about Charlatan is he's not one-dimensional. We've seen him in the Malibu lay off Nashville, who was absolutely blazing along, and he was waiting. For a horse that's only had 4 starts to be as patient as he was, I think that he ran lights out that day. I think the 1 turn mile and an eighth actually is going to suit him better than it's going to suit Knicks Go, because to me, Knicks Go wins a lot of his races on the turns. He is an exceptional turn horse. He doesn't have to slow down to take the turn. He takes it at speed. And that's where he can sneak away and put some distance on horses. But in here, where he only has 1 turn, he might not be able to build up that much of a lead that he might want to have, per se. So I still haven't made a decision on who between those two I'm really going to be in love with. I think I'm going to lay it down and see come that night who's acting better, right? This is going to be a different scenario. They're going to be here under the lights. We had some rain expected. I want to see if we get that rain. I want to see how the track's been playing. It seemed to have been playing pretty fair when we were watching, previous races that have been run here. But, every night's a different night. So I kind of want to play wait and see just with those two. For a long shot horse, I'm 1,000% going to throw in Military Law. That's the horse I have become enamored with. I fall in love a lot when I'm in the desert, obviously. All these horses tootle by, and I'm tootling after them. This horse won the Al Maktoum Challenge round 1 last time out, going the flat mile. He's run well enough going farther, right? He's finishing behind Ben Batal, who was 3rd in this race last year, finishing behind Grade 1 winner Matterhorn. So his dirt form is excellent. He has looked sensational on the track. He comes out and he just looks like a star. A lot of times you can tell the difference between like a Euro-based horse and an American-based horse. This horse would fit in with us. I just love the way that he looks and he carries himself with such poise, and I think that this could be a really big night for him.
I like it. I like everything about that analysis. Lots of great information in there. Tom, from your perspective, how do you see this one? Is it all about the Americans for that top slot? Let's start there.
Do you know what? I think for us, just debating out here, it is all about those 2 Americans. As much as I'm a huge fan of Sleepy Eyes Todd, the way he comes out, he stands in the same place. He actually, his work rider does seem to give him sleepy eyes with him just standing there relaxing. He always stands in the same place, looks at the track, and then sets off. Beautiful. It's worth pointing out, I think the Max player was really poor at the gates when he was schooled at the gates. That was a bit of a surprise, I think, for all of us, but he did not want to go in. Whether that's a negative for the actual race, I don't know, but I think they'll want to take it into account as to when they load him. Whether they'll want to try and get him in early, I don't know, just because if he does take a while going in, then the rest of the horses could be stood in there for a while. So I think that's something to take into account. But yes, it was really interesting, genuinely, going through all the split times with Michelle a couple of nights ago for these American runners. So just to give you some context on that, when I'm hosting in Dubai, I'm a huge fan of a horse called Capizano, who ran in this race disappointingly last year. He's never been the same since. But when the track was really fast at Meydan, when he got out on the lead, he burnt the other horses off from the front. Not talking American horses here, of course, because he didn't face any until he ran disappointingly in the World Cup a couple of years ago. But I'd always be listening out for that first quarter time. And I'd be thinking, give me what I call 23 and a half seconds or above, and I'm okay. Anything closer to 23, and I'm going, he's gone too quick. So when I was going through with Michelle these first quarter times, I said, and I can't remember which horse it was, whether it was Charlatan over the 7 last time. I think it might have been Knicks Go in the Breeders' Cup Mile, but there was a 21 and change time for the first quarter, and I just said, well, that's wrong. I'm sorry, you've got that wrong, Michelle. That's just not possible. I mean, a horse can't do that and sustain it. And these, for somebody that's not used to these American times and that's used to these Dubai times, that's frightening that the horses can do that in the first quarter of a race and sustain it and still be there at the finish. So I think that's worth taking into account. All these closers we're talking about from the UK, the likes of a Bangkok, who literally bounced out the stalls at Lingfield last time in the Winter Derby trial, was allowed to find his own pace and then kept on and picked up the pieces. Are Mike Smith and Joel Rosario going to go hell for leather up top and gun it from the front, really, and kill each other? They're not going to kill each other because Bob Baffert horses don't stop, right? And we haven't seen Knicks Go stop in front yet. So I'm not really playing into that something swooping late from the field and even getting involved. So that worries me for a lot of the UK horses. I think this is a case of Charlatan perfectly drawn because he's probably a bit more versatile than Knicks Go. It's probably the right draw for both horses. I can see Charlatan just sitting pretty, just in behind, just on the quarters of Knicks Go. And I'm banking on him to win, to beat Knicks Go. And unfortunately, I agree, I'm a huge fan of Military Law. I opposed him in round 1 of the Amattoon Challenge last time because I thought there was no way he'd be quick enough against fast horses to win over the mile. He wasn't always that quickly away. On his first start of the season, sharp away, got a good position, won over the mile. This is much more his trip, the 9 furlongs, or the mile and an eighth, as you call it. I'm getting there. And I think he's, I think he's a great play for third. So that'd be my 3: Charlatan to beat Nixgo and to beat Military Law. I'd love to see last year's Saudi Derby third run really well for local connections, but I just worry a little bit about him at the start and whether he'll be able to pick up the pieces like he did in the Saudi Derby last time, because this could happen a bit too quick.
All right, so Michelle's sitting on the fence. You're gonna go with Charlatan on top. I'll profess some more admiration of Knicks Go and just say at current prices where you're looking at about 3-1 in fixed odds places about Knicks Go. I'm pretty sure that's good value just because I do think it's one or the other. And I just sensed Michelle made a great point about the one turn and how that might not play to Knicks Go because of how good he is about running on turns. But just in terms of the distance, we know that he thrives and is still finishing at a mile and an eighth. And I can't quite get that Arkansas Derby out of my mind where Charlatan looked so weak sectionally in the end. And then hearing that this is a deeper, more tiring track, I'm just not sure Charlatan's going to get home fast enough to beat Knicks Go. He might, but
I don't think it's deeper. I think it's looser.
Okay, that's interesting.
Clear, because Santa Anita is very deep, and we saw how good he runs there. But we have a lot more water on it, so it's looser. Which so when their feet go in, instead of like getting in and you have something to push off of, you're kind of just going in and floating before you're removing again.
Am I correct in intuiting that that's the looser requires more stamina?
I think it just feels a little bit different, right? Like, I don't know if it's more stamina. It just uses different muscles because it's, you're not, if something's really hard, you're getting a lot more like bone concussion, and the softer something is, I think the more soft tissue, you're using. So that'd be more muscular in different, areas. And it's not something to like grab onto.
Tom, did you have something to chime in there?
Raise your hand. Raise your hand when you want to speak.
It was raising his hand like a very polite guest. I don't get many of those.
Miss. I wanted to ask you a question actually, which has really just occurred to me, just going through the form for the first time. Do we think so? That the perception is, speaking to Travis yesterday, that Tacitus is a better conditioned horse this year, a stronger horse this year than this time last year. He's probably better drawn for his run style than the 2 last year. The 7 this year may just suit him that little bit better. Is this a weaker contest depth-wise than last year, particularly with the Americans that came over? And therefore, are we wrong to discount him? Are we wrong to say that he can't win this race this time around?
So I feel like, I don't know if it's weaker. It's definitely less experience, right? I think last year between Maximum Security and Midnight Bisou, we had a really solid foundation and we knew exactly what type of horses that they were. Knicks Go, his brilliance has been very recent, and we're not entirely sure how valid it is because, we're talking about an allowance, other than, and the Breeders' Cup was obviously super impressive, and the Pegasus was not the strongest field. So is his company line suspect? Yes. And then we're talking about Charlatan, who really hasn't been proven. He's never faced older horses, obviously. And, this is a situation where Bob Baffert usually drills his horses and gets them there. He's had a break. He's had one race, and he's going to all of a sudden stretch back out, ship across the world. This is a tall ask for a horse. I did get to talk to Mike, and he just said that going into the race, he felt relatively confident because he'd seen him work. He said after the race, he was unbelievably impressed that this horse is actually better than he originally anticipated. And Mike's obviously ridden some very good horses. We think about Arrogate when he was running in the Travers and start number 3. So can Bob Baffert do it? Sure. But can Tacitus reel in horses like that? I'm not entirely sure, because even though he's bigger and he's stronger, I don't think he's faster. I think he's still Tacitus, right? Like, I think he's still
a slow horse.
Yeah. If this was a mile and a quarter, I would say Tacitus might have a much better shot. As it is, he ran last year and picked up $1 million. That's what he's here for.
Yeah. And you made the point, Michelle, about how this is a prep for Channelmaker. Might it not also just be a prep in a sense for Tacitus? This will sharpen him up and put him in a great spot. When I say he's slow, I'm a charter member of the Tacitus fan club. I love him. He just can't quicken for anything. He
Yeah.
is a grinder who needs
Exactly.
stamina to come into play. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think he could run really well here, but I think for him running really well could be third or fourth. If you're playing superfectas, you're crazy to leave Tacitus out of the 3 and 4, and I might even put him in the 2. And maybe this sounds like splitting hairs, but I just probably won't even have a penny with him on top.
I would agree. For me, if he wins, I'm like, let him beat me. Like that's how I feel about him.
I want him to have trouble and be a non-threatening fifth, and then we'll come back and bet him at a big price in the
we'll be happy because at fifth you pick up $1 million. Like last year when I was flying home from Saudi with Bill Mott, I'm like, oh, what'd you think of your horse? And he's like, well, I couldn't have won 2 races at home and cleared $1 million, so I'm pretty happy.
Tom, you had something to button up this conversation. Then we'll put in the plug for where folks can watch you this weekend, and we'll let you get out of here.
I feel that he's a horse. I'm looking at the British prices here. He went off at 10-1 last year. I know this doesn't help your pod, British prices, but that's what I'm dealing with.
No, we have Brits who subscribe and watch.
He's a 12-1 shot this time round, and I can sort of see. Quite often you get horses running in the same race that are just discounted or not discounted. They'll go off at that bigger price because they didn't win it last year. He's not going to win it this year, but I can just see what's in his favour that little bit more draw-wise, conditioning-wise. And I don't think the race is as deep. So I can just argue, I don't think he's going to win. I can argue he's that good value loser, which I love.
I love that term. I wouldn't be surprised if he drifts at the books. In the tote, familiarity will drive that price down, but fixed odds listeners, pay attention. If he gets up to 20, 25-1, you could look at him place only or certainly mess around with him in tri-casts underneath the big horses. Okay, last and key question. Where can folks watch you guys this weekend? Where's the best way to see your coverage and coverage of the event?
Going to be a bevy of places. I think you can watch the full card on on your ADW. Also, I believe TVG is going to be carrying the undercard, and then we're going to be on Fox for half of the undercard races, and then also Fox for the big race, the golden hour leading up to the Saudi Cup.
I love it. I can't wait to check it out. And it's funny, and I do love your difference in broadcasting styles. Tom with the polite raising of the hand. Michelle, she just goes for it. And I love both of you for it.
I have been the mother hen out here and getting a little aggressive, getting some things done out in the broadcast compound. If you need something done, Michelle gets it done.
I love it.
Mother hen sounds like somebody's been behaving, so I refute that.
Great stuff, guys. Thank you so much, not just for your time today, but for your Herculean efforts to get here. We will see you on the simulcast feed and the TV, and we hope to have you back soon. Very happy to be joined now on this internationally flavored edition of the In the Money Players podcast by a man I've had the pleasure of hanging out with up at Woodbine on a couple of occasions. He's part of their senior management team on the simulcast side. He's also an avowed fan of Japanese racing, here to talk to us about what's going to be going on in Japan Saturday night into Sunday. Klaus Ebner, welcome to the program. How are you?
PTF, how's it going? Good here. Obviously, got a little bit of snow up north, but I'm sure we also have some snow down south, so it's all very wintry, if you will.
Yeah, we have a little coating today. It's actually kind of nice. You can just hear it crunch under your feet. It's not the problematic kind this time around, and like what poor JK is dealing with down in Texas. But I have to ask, how did you get involved? You describe yourself as a lifelong fan of Japanese racing. How did you get involved in the first place?
So it's kind of strange. So being a young guy, 10, 11 years old, I grew up close to the racetrack. So Woodbine itself, when I was growing up, I lived about 5 minutes away from Woodbine. So I would actually walk to Woodbine, kind of sneak in there to play some wagers illegally. Hey, we're not going to talk about that. But as a big video game fan growing up, I was looking and scouring for these internet games or console games to play, and the only ones I could find were Japanese games. So I didn't care. I just loved horse racing that much. I decided to play Japanese horse racing games. That games like Winning Post, Gallop Racer, and all those kind of games in Japanese. So naturally, you learn the breeding, you learn the jockeys, you learn the races. So that's how I kind of grew up on Japanese racing, and I still play them to this day, to be honest with you. And also help me to understand and learn Japanese as well through katakana and other language. So yeah, it's just been a kind of a lifelong
Oh,
thing
that's
where
great.
video games turned into a passion about Japanese racing, and here we are. So
That's so cool. So we should explain the relationship. This is the first of many shows this year we're going to be doing covering the JRA. And in your role at Woodbine, what's the best way to describe it? You're helping promote their signal in North America?
that's right. That's right. So we as Woodbine have been partners with the JRA for over 10 years in regards to hosting their racing. So what we do is, again, we provide a B pool, which is, to your fans, it's really just, it's not wagering into the Japanese pools. Hey, I think we all wish we could. They're wagering over $250 billion a year in their pools, and we certainly want to be part of that in the future. But currently, the only option we have is offering a B pool to North American players. So again, we as Woodbine host it. So any players wagering on Japanese racing this weekend will wager into these B pools that we offer at Woodbine. And
Gotcha.
what we're doing
And
at
it's
Woodbine is sort of
low takeout environment too.
certainly,
Oh, sorry,
yes,
talked over you there for a second.
no problem.
But that's one thing.
Yeah, so we just offer. We're going to have in terms of pools, it's your traditional pools. So win, play, show, exacta, try, super. But we do have some low takeout pools that you mentioned. So we have a 15%, 15% pick five, so an early and late, and we also have a super high five in the feature race, which would be the February Stakes this weekend.
Fantastic. And Triple Crown points on the line as well, I noticed, in a non-graded affair. I definitely want to talk to you on today's show about the big race, and I think we got to touch on that one as well. The hope here throughout the course of the year to get me up to speed. I'm going to start looking and studying the form myself. I've not done that for these two races to kick things off. We're a little late in putting this plan together, but I'm excited to get your thoughts on these two races, and maybe you can guide us through and give us an idea of like what time these races are on as well for folks who want to start paying attention.
Certainly, yeah. So, this is more of your late night content. So, racing itself will usually start at around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, depending on which race it is, and also how the time zone changes in terms of daylight savings time. So, again, you're going to have the first race starts off at around 8 or 9, and then your feature race, your grade one usually is going to be anywhere from 1:30, 1:40 to 2 o'clock in the morning, around there. So, again, it is a late night, or the late owls, if you will, wager on the content. But certainly, if you can stay up that late, it's worth your while. That's for sure.
And I mean, for the West Coast in the USA, that's not bad at all. And even here, it's not unattainable, especially for those of us without small children waking us up early in the morning. But for me, I think in my early forays into it, I'll probably be paying attention to the early part of the card. Maybe put in a late pick five at the 15-cent takeout, and wake up in the morning and watch all the replays. What's the best place for an American to catch up on the replays if they are putting in a wager like that late pick five with the low takeout and wanting to watch in the morning? Do all the ADWs have them?
Yes, yeah. So it'll be available through all the major ADWs. So no issues there. So again, whatever platform you're using, it should be on there. I don't see a reason why it wouldn't. And again, you can catch replays for all the races, and that's, again, no problem there at all for live or replayed content.
What do you recommend for people wanting to do some form work on their own? What's the best place to get the PPs? When are they typically available?
So that's kind of the challenge we do have, PTF, in regards to the PPs for Japan. So we are working with Ecobase, so those PPs are available. But what I really suggest in terms of a really meaty PP for customers to use is available on the japanracing.jp. And that site as well also offers a plethora of information. It'll offer data analysis. It'll offer some real-time odds as well. So, and again, those real-time odds will actually be odds in Japan, which is important because with us offering a North American B pool, what I do a lot of times is leverage those odds that actually are in Japan versus what we have in the North American B pool. And a lot of times, you may see a horse that may be second or third choice on the board in Japan. Well, guess what? He's drifted up to 8, 9, 10, 11 to 1 sometimes in the North American pool, and you get your value sometimes that way. and whether you get your value in terms of your exotics, where you're keying that horse, or maybe you want to have that horse in the back end of your wagers. That's where I see you find a lot of your value is kind of comparing those odds in terms of what's in Japan versus what other people here in North America.
Remind us that URL again, and then I'll make sure to put it in the show notes too, so folks can follow along that way.
Certainly. So it's japanracing.jp. And this is the English-based site run by the JRA and their affiliates in Japan. So again, you're going to have a lot of information on there. Have some PPs available. Again, just back to that point about PPs, PTF, is the fact that the PPs won't be available until the morning of. So it's unfortunately not like a North American situation where we have our PPs available, 2 to 3 days out. We can kind of do the homework. Unfortunately, just the way that the races are drawn and the JRA puts the races together, we are kind of limited in terms of what we have. But again, listen, if the races are at 8 o'clock at night, you still have lots of time to get some, handicapping in and pull up those PPs while you're, playing a race from Gulfstream or Oaklawn, for instance. So
I'm realizing I should probably do a written piece for the website at some point. That's a little bit of an overview. I mean, I could have you on for an hour talking about the ins and outs. For this visit, I think we're gonna dive right in at this point to the form study. But whether it's you coming back subsequently on here and or providing some written content, I really want to give folks a primer for what they can be looking at it and get them up to speed, because
sure.
I know this audience, and as much as they want to hear other people's opinions, really the fun is diving in yourself, of course. But let's start off with the race that's awarding the Kentucky Derby points. I believe is it the Hyacinth Stakes?
Yeah, Hyacinth Stakes. So this is part of the Derby initiated road to the Kentucky Derby. PTF, we usually don't see that many horses come out of this, but I think this year in this race here may have one horse that, again, a trainer has actually been aiming for, and that's the favorite in this race, and that's Le Perouse. So Le Perouse, it sounds sort of like Leperoux, but it's Le Perouse. This horse has been aimed for this race and for possibly the Triple Crown Tribe by the trainer, Fujisawa. So Fujisawa, for those who don't know Fujisawa, his name doesn't ring a bell. This is the trainer that sent Casino Drive over to win the Peter Pan, and then the horse got injured before the Belmont. But again, so he's no stranger to sending horses over internationally. Very adept trainer, one of the best in Japan, if you will. And again, this horse, in terms of breeding, it's by Palooza. So Palooza was a grade 2 long distance horse by a surprise, Sunday Silence sire, Zeno Rob Roy. So for listeners that don't know, obviously Sunday Silence went over to Japan, became an influential mark on their breeding industry, and sort of turned the industry around as to where it
changed the breed.
Exactly, yeah. and really escalated Japanese racing to the upper echelon of racing in around the world, right? So again, by Palooza, and surprise, out of an Empire Maker mare, and that's kind of in terms of what we're talking about with customers playing Japanese racing is, listen, you don't have to worry about the pedigrees, because the pedigrees for the most part are all based. Again, you're going to have some European influence in there, but you're going to have a strong American influence with the pedigrees. So as everyone knows, they've imported sires such as California Chrome. They have Pyro there. They did have Empire Maker there as well. So again, a lot of American influences, and they also have a lot of group mares from the U.S. as well. So Azeri's over there. You have Wayville Avenue, for instance. A lot of very familiar U.S. breeding is there. Or North American breeding, if you will, is there as well. So it's not like it's a foreign thing where I don't know the dam, I don't know the sire, I'm kind of clueless. No, it's again, lots to like there. But anyways, so back to Le Perouse, really, coming off back-to-back wins, one last time at a mile and eighth, and it's cutting back to a mile here for the stakes try. It is stakes company for the first time, but based on the replays, I think Le Perouse has a big shot in here. And in
Fantastic.
terms of,
that's one we'll be paying attention to.
And in terms of other horses in the race to look at, you do have the second choice in there, which is Takeru Pegasus. You can't miss this horse. This horse is bright white, almost. So I think the horse is gray, but almost bright white. He's by, again, speaking of that pedigree, he's by Dunkirk. So again, the Pletcher trained horse that was second in the Derby, second in the Belmont. So again, pedigree is there. This horse knows no other way other than going to the front. So he certainly is a speed horse in the race. Will take this field as long as he can go. And did have a second place effort last time out in the another race that's kind of on the Japanese Triple Crown Trail for the Derby. That's the Catalia Stakes. So again, Tiger Pegasus will be on the front end. I can kind of see Laperouse sort of sitting mid-pack and making a run. And again, it'll probably be between those two. But I do have a bit of a long shot play in here. And it's kind of a sneaky long shot play, if you will. So there's a horse called Bakushin. He's by, again, North American sire, Henny Hughes, who's in Japan as well. So with Bakushin, he had a kind of lackluster start to his career. Tried turf for a couple of times, and then raced primarily on dirt for the last couple of starts. In his last start, he raced in a Grade 1 on the NAR circuit. So they have JRA and NAR. So JRA being kind of like the A league, and then NAR sort of like your B league of racing in Japan, but it's all dirt racing at the NAR circuits. So the track he was at was called Kawasaki, which is a NAR track. It's a Grade 1. Japanese Grade 1 in this case here for the Nippon Nisai Yushun. So again, don't remember the name, but anyways, it's a Grade 1 over a mile. He was drawn in post 13, was out 3 to 4 wide the whole way. He made a run at the leaders, but the leader had a kind of a golden rail, perfect trip, went to the lead, just didn't look back. So I wouldn't hold that against him, but his races on the JRA circuit were very good. So I think, again, not saying he's going to win, but I think he can put a good effort into the race here.
Interesting one, potentially at a price there. Obviously, we'll have PP program numbers and whatnot. We just don't have them yet. That's why we're going by the name here. But if folks check Saturday morning, they should be able to get that sorted out.
For sure. Yeah. And again, it'll all be in there. And again, we can certainly help out however we can. And I'll make sure I tweet it out to your Twitter feed as well in terms of where that program can be found. And we'll do whatever we can.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. I love that. Let's move on to the big race of the night. It is the Grade 1 February Stakes. What are we expecting to see in this one?
Yeah. So we have a field of 16. So again, a really big field, which is very good. Now, dirt racing in Japan is sort of like the horses that usually can't cut it on the turf. Usually, are then put on the turf. That's usually on the dirt rather. That's usually how it works. And then you also have your dirt specialist. So this race here is kind of they have two big Grade 1 races on the dirt. They have the February Stakes, which obviously is today. They also have the Champions Cup, which is their premier race at 1.8 miles in December. So those are the two kind of big dirt races on the calendar. You do have also the NAR Grade 1s as well that horses may run in as well throughout the year if they are a dirt horse. But this race here, again, has a lot of horses that are, we're not going to say long in the tooth, but we'll say experienced speeds in this case here. We do have one 4-year-old.
That's nicer.
Yes. We do have one 4-year-old in this race, that being Cafe Pharaoh, and as you can imagine by the name, is by American Pharaoh. Has the services of Christophe Lemaire, who's, in the U.S. we have, obviously Mike Smith has the name Big Money Mike. Well, in Japan, Christophe Lemaire could have the name, Big Cash Christophe, if you will, or Lots of Cash Christophe. He is hands down for those playing in the races from Japan, the number one jockey in Japan. He wins it over at close to 20% strike rate. There's no, you could usually see him sometimes winning 4 to 5 races on a card, on a JRA card. So hands down, one of the best jockeys in Japan. Cafe Pharaoh enters in off of a, lackluster effort last time out of the Champion Stakes. But again, I think is just part and parcel to having a long campaign last year. I think he had to enter the race because, again, he was one of the best 3-year-olds in Japan last year on the dirt. So they decided to take a shot. He raced mid-pack, made sort of a move, but he wasn't going to catch the winner that day. And you know who the winner was? Well, Chua Wizard. And where's Chua Wizard right now? Well, he's in Saudi Arabia going for the big money tomorrow. So, again, it's not like he lost to a bunch of schleps. He lost to some pretty decent horses in terms of horses in Japan. So again, I think he's one to watch. He hasn't raced since then, so he's had a freshening for a very capable trainer, and that being Noriyuki Hori. And I think again, he deserves a really long look in here. He's probably the second choice, I think, as it stands right now, as the current odds in Japan. I think the second choice is around 5.5 to 1. So again, certainly one to watch. Others in here that really stand out are the number 14, Auvergne. I always have a problem with that name in terms of how to say it. Auvergne could be the name. I apologize. But anyways, he's the current favorite on the morning line, and this horse really comes into this race off of a really, really stellar effort last time out. Raced out at a mile and 8, so cutting back from a mile and 8 now to a mile. And Auvergne just, again, he's won 3 in a row now. He's gone from success to success, and last time out in the Tokai Stakes, which is a prep race for the February Stakes, and has been a key prep race for this race over the past 10 years. So horses leaving the Tokai Stakes have won, I believe, 4 or 5 of the last runnings of this race, being February Stakes. He's a 5-year-old, so is developing now. And again, last race out, he was 4 or 5 wide, and then eventually was 3 wide, give or take, for the last half of the race. Had his stalking position, and then if you watch, you have the ability to watch a replay on JapanRacing.jp, but he had this race won easily, turning for home. So it wasn't really asked for much, but I think, to me, he stands out as the class in this field. Others to look at in here, could be the number 6, Arctos. So Arctos comes in here. He's a 6-year-old by Admire Aura. Comes in here off of a pretty good effort in his last start. Now, his last start, he raced against the number 16, Red Lizelle, who's also one of the choices in this race. But Arctos, he's a very big horse, and is one of those horses that kind of needs momentum to build up running into the race to get his move done. But he was bottled in behind horses, had nowhere to go. Finally found some room when he ducked towards the inside. But by that point, the Red Lizelle is a very deep closer, and he had momentum on his side, went past the field and won in his race last time out. So again, I think Arctos, Auvergne, and Cafe Ferro will probably be your main contenders in here. Obviously, I like to have some long shots, but unfortunately, as it stands in the February Stakes, Pete, favorites have won this race about 40% of the time in the last 10 years. So I don't know what that. We'll see what happens.
Sometimes the best way to be a wise guy is to know when not to be a wise guy and stick with those ones at the top of the market. What remind us we do have the program numbers for the stake. Just remind us the numbers of those 3, if you wouldn't mind.
For sure. Yeah. So again, the horses I'd be looking at were number 3, Cafe Ferro, the number 6, Arctos, and the number 14, Auvergne. I believe that's how you spell it.
Great stuff. Right. I'm sorry I had to make you say that again, but it sounds good to me. But not that I like to be a pronunciation snob, but I need to earn my chops to do it for the Japanese runners. But Klaus, thank you so much. We're going to be seeing plenty of you. We're going to figure out a way to get some written content over on the site as well, so we can. This is going to be a journey we're going on together. I love international racing. Very interesting stuff going on in Japan, and we're happy for you to be our Sherpa as we make this journey together. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, no problem, Pete. And again, we have actually one more thing, and then we'll send it out on the tweet. But we do have a idol horse. So we do have these are very famous in Japan. They're little stuffed animal horses. But we'll tweet it out and make sure that your listeners are eligible to win a idol horse that we'll send out to one of them. So,
oh, that's awesome! I love it. My daughter is going to see that, and it's going to be the only thing I hear. She's going to cry when I tell her we're not eligible to win the giveaway. But thank you very much. We'll be talking soon.
Thanks, BTF. Take care.
That's going to do it for this edition of the show. I want to thank today's guests. We had a great time talking to Spencer Luginbuehl, Michelle Yu, Tom Stanley, and Klaus Ebner. Really great info. Hopefully we're going to have a whole bunch of winners out of that. We want to thank our new partners over at the JRA, and of course Woodbine Entertainment, long been with us, and of course our founding partners. We always like to shout them out as well. Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, going to be hearing a lot about them next week, but I'll just let you know for now, you can make a donation at trfinc.org/players to support the wonderful work that they do. And 10 Strike Racing, always happy to have them involved. Might be doing something fun and special for Plus with them for next weekend for Oaklawn Park. We'll see how that all shakes out. Hopefully everything's going to be back in running order at Oaklawn. And now it's time for the credits. We'll start with producer Craig Gorbanoff. Just been doing a fantastic job. DJ Unstable himself, troubleshooting, team viewing into computers, fixing what's broken, and pushing all the right buttons. Our business manager is Drew Coatney over here at In the Money Media. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornitel. May you win all your photos.
Just me